Wonka was directed by Paul King and it stars Timothy Chalamet as the title character. And this movie is the origin story of how Willy became Willy Wonka. And this is the origin story of Gene Wilder's Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. So in this movie, we have a young and poor Willy Wonka, played by Timothy Chalamet, who has ideas in his head, has a hat full of dreams because he wants to sell his chocolate, but he can't do it without a shop. But until these chocolate cartel guys are trying to put him out of business, and now Willy Wonka has to create a group of friends to help him on this mission and help him stop the situation. And now we got our movie. Now, if y'all may not know this, I'm a massive fan of Willy Wonka. I mean, yes, I grew up loving the Willy Wonka movies when I was a kid, but when I heard they were making an origin story of Willy Wonka, I was like, wait, does this take place in Johnny Depp's Willy Wonka or Gene Wilder's Willy Wonka? But no, and it looks like after seeing the trailers for this movie, I was like, so this takes place in Gene Wilder's Willy Wonka universe. So that's actually pretty cool. Now, with Gene Wilder from Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory has been one of my favorite movies when I was a kid. I grew up loving it back in elementary school. Johnny Depp's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, now with his Willy Wonka, I used to like this movie as a kid, I'm not gonna lie. But when I was watching this movie as an adult, rewatching it again, I was like, So I was like, yeah, I heard there was some hit and miss about the movie. I heard people say that the movie felt dark, and I was like, yeah, I have to agree. This movie was actually pretty dark. And with Johnny Depp's Willy Wonka, felt a little bit more hit and miss for me. I mean, I thought it was alright. Now, with Timothy Chalamet's Willy Wonka, it surprised me. When I heard positive reviews about the movie, I was like, okay, I'm going to go ahead and see this movie. And then after walking out of this movie, and I have to tell you, this movie was awesome. Wonka, in my opinion, is easily one of the best movies of the year, because this movie takes place in Gene Wilder's Willy Wonka universe. Now, this was before we had Charlie Bucket, before we had Veruca Salt, Mike TV, Augustus Gloop, and etc., etc. And that's pretty much it. So this was before, because this is the origin story. It takes place all the way back to his past life, and that's pretty much it for that. So yeah, I enjoyed this movie a lot. When I heard Paul King was directing this movie, I was like, okay, I want to see what he does. After directing the Paddington movies that he directed, the live action Paddington movies, Paddington 1 and 2, those were pretty good movies. But I want to see what he does with this movie. But I was like, okay. After hearing positive reviews for this film, I was like, I'm glad they sticked his name for this movie. And man, he was perfect to direct this movie. Maybe he's a Willy Wonka fan. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if Paul King is a Willy Wonka fan. I mean, who knows? But anyway, I guess that's it for that. Let's talk about the actors and the characters themselves. Starting off with is Timothy Chalamet as the title role, Willy Wonka. Now, like I said, this is the origin story of how Willy became Willy Wonka that we all know and love. Now, with his Willy Wonka, he has hope. He has ideas in his head. He has a hat full of dreams. He found out that these chocolate cartel guys are trying to stop him from selling chocolate. Yeah, but there's some times in the movie he does get stopped by the police or the chief of police for the most part in the movie. But the thing is, Wonka is trying to create a shop, but he creates a group of friends. Yeah, who are basically scrubbers, like these scrubbing people or something. But he actually creates a group of friends to help him stop the chocolate cartel from ruining the dream that he wants. He's trying to create his dream with reality, and that was pretty much it for Willy Wonka. And this is the origin story. And you might discover a little bit of his childhood story, which I won't talk about. You gotta see the movie yourself. He does. But the thing is, I guess that's pretty much it for Willy Wonka. And Timothy Chalamet, when I heard his Willy Wonka was pretty good in this movie, and I got to say, he's actually one of the best casting choices. He's actually, in my opinion, one of the best casting choices for this role. And I'm glad they picked Timothy Chalamet as the title character. Timothy Chalamet has played in drama roles before, but I guess he wants to play in a different role by playing in a child-friendly, family-friendly role in this movie. And he really impresses the audience to see what he can do as Willy Wonka. And to my opinion, Timothy Chalamet is brilliant in this movie. He really shines. He was delightful, and that's pretty much it. And I think that's it for Timothée Chalamet. Next up is Kala Lane as Noodle. Now, I don't know why they call her Noodle. No offense, but I don't know why they call her Noodle. I think the movie actually explained where she got the name from. So I guess that's pretty much it. So in this movie, Noodle, in this film, they didn't really touch much on her in the trailer. But the only thing I can say is I like her chemistry with Willy Wonka. She gets you might discover a little bit of her story arc, her backstory, which I won't talk about. You gotta see the movie yourself. She does have excellent chemistry with Willy Wonka throughout the majority of the movie. They feel like brother and sister figure in this movie. She's trying to help Willy sell chocolate and create this shop, and also trying to give him the dream that he wants is to sell chocolate or create a chocolate factory, or mostly just a chocolate shop, or just both. That's pretty much it. And Kala Lane as Noodle is really good in this movie, and I think that's pretty much it. And I think that's it for Kala Lane. And next up is Rowan Atkinson. Y'all may know him as Mr. Bean in Johnny English. Now he's playing in the Wonka movie as Father Julius. Now, Father Julius wasn't really touched much in the trailer. The only thing I can say is I think he's like a pastor or a priest, I guess. I'm not quite sure. But the only thing I can say is they didn't really touch much of him in the trailer. And also he's not really in the movie too much. I think he was in a couple of moments in the movie, and that's pretty much it, and gone. And that was pretty much it. And I'm like, we could at least spend a little bit more quality time with him, discover what he does in this movie, see what this character does. Now, I think Rowan Atkinson is really good in this movie, but I wish we spent quality time with him a little bit. But like I said, he's not in the movie all that much, which I totally get it. Maybe Rowan Atkinson didn't want to be in the movie too much, so that's pretty understandable. That's pretty understandable for what he wants. Rowan Atkinson is really good as Father Julius, and like I said, we could at least spend a little bit of time with him, and that's pretty much it. But he was in a couple of moments in the movie, and that's pretty much it. And I think that's it for Rowan Atkinson. And next up is Patterson Joseph as Slugworth. Now, Slugworth and his two men who work at this chocolate cartel who is trying to stop Willy Wonka from selling chocolate and creating a chocolate shop. He is ruining this guy is just ruining his life. He's ruining Willy Wonka's life, but him and his two men, they're trying to ruin Willy Wonka's life and make his life miserable. He's like, yeah, you ain't gonna sell chocolate this time, pal. No, you're not. But then this movie, with him and his two chocolate cartel men, they're the best villains in the movie. I was a little bit worried because, with the previous Willy Wonka, the last two Willy Wonka movies with Johnny Depp and Gene Wilder, they didn't have any villains. In this movie, this is our first Willy Wonka movie with villains. And I have to say, these villains are fantastic. I love the villain of this movie. Slugworth is more of like the main villain than his two minions in this movie. But I actually like Slugworth in this movie, and I think he was easily one of the best villains in the movie. And Patterson Joseph is really good in this movie as Slugworth, and that's all I can say for Slugworth. And then next up we have Olivia Colman as Mrs. Scrubbit. Now, Mrs. Scrubbit in this movie, Mrs. Scrubbit wasn't really touched much in the trailer. She does mistreats these she mistreats her scrubbers like crap. Yeah, she's sort of like this strict character in this movie. Like throughout the majority of the movie, there's sometimes she's nice. She feels like she feels like she's in this strict mode. But then there's most of the time she is pretty funny in this movie. She was actually pretty funny in this movie. She does make me laugh like in a couple of moments in the movie. She wasn't annoying. She was actually pretty funny. This is actually a really funny character. And I think that's pretty much it for her. Olivia Colman is really good in this movie as Mrs. Scrubbit, and I think that's it for Mrs. Scrubbit. Then last but not least is Hugh Grant as the Oompa Loompa. There you go. Now we got our Oompa Loompa back from the original, but this isn't the size. Now, I saw the size of this character in this movie. I was like, wait, this isn't the size that we saw from the original. I mean, I understand this is an origin story, but I was like, you know what? Whatever. But I actually like this design. The CGI of the way Hugh Grant looks amazing. I like this design. It looks pretty good. Hugh Grant as the Oompa Loompa is really good in this movie, and I think this is one of my favorite casting choices. The whole entire cast is perfect, including Hugh Grant is perfect casting for this role. Yeah, he was actually perfect casting for this character, and in my opinion, he's actually pretty good in this movie. But there's sometimes he's not in the movie all that much. He meets Willy Wonka for the first time, and when he meets Willy Wonka for the first time, but then he does sing like loop bop doopy dee doo. I got another puzzle for you, which that is one of my favorite childhood songs. When I heard that song in the movie, I was like, oh, this brings me back as a kid again. I feel like a kid again watching the original Willy Wonka with Gene Wilder. But with this Oompa Loompa, I actually like the way he looks. The way they handle Hugh Grant in this movie, he was treated perfectly. He was treated perfectly with the CGI design. And the way they added his face to the character of the Oompa Loompa character, it's perfect. The face recognition doesn't feel more CGI, doesn't feel more visual effects. It is visual effects, but it made him look more like Hugh Grant from the movie. And this is absolutely brilliant. The visual effects, I actually want to give the visual effect designers a round of applause for doing a really good job with the design of the Oompa Loompa. And this Oompa Loompa is part of my childhood, but the original Oompa Loompas that we had from the original were actually just like these people just made, like these small people just made out of makeup. This Oompa Loompa is made out of CGI, which is pretty good. And I like the way he looks. I like the orange skin. I like the way that the orange skin turned out and the green hair. I actually like that. It looks pretty good. But like I said, I just wish we spent a little bit more quality time with him, and that's pretty much it. But I do like the original song that he sung from the original movie. And Hugh Grant is really good in this movie as the Oompa Loompa, and he got another puzzle for you, and that's pretty much it for that. And I think that's it for, I think that's pretty much it for the Oompa Loompa. I think that's it for Hugh Grant. And that's it for the actors and the characters themselves. Now let's discuss where the setting takes place. I forgot where the setting takes place. I think it's, the Montgomery Gorman, something like that. I don't really remember. But this town now in this movie, the setting is fantastic. I love the set designs of this movie. I like the way where the film takes place. The settings of this movie is really, really good. I like the way, this is, like I said, this is an origin story of Willy Wonka's past life. And the way that they handle the settings of this movie is really good. Some are visual effects, some are felt like a more like realistic in real life, but it actually looks really good. Now with this, so what else? And also there were some really cool moments where, there were some moments where it felt like more on the Paddington side. Like, I understand Paul King has directed the last few Paddington movies in the past, but with his directorial debut directing this movie, I felt like this movie looks a little bit like Paddington meets Harry Potter, but different. But because the way that the set design looks. But Paul King did a really good job with the setting of this movie. So let's discuss the visual effects. The visual effects in this movie are really good. I love the visual effects in this movie of how it was handled with really good CGI. And with Willy Wonka trying to sell his magical chocolate. There was some chocolate, there was some chocolate candy that felt like, there's some chocolate candy that can fly or, like have magical stuff in chocolate, which is really cool. That's pretty much it. And also I want to talk about the music. Now this turning out to be a musical, the only thing I did not know is Timothée Chalamet can actually sing. And I'm like, wait, Timothée Chalamet can sing? That's awesome. Timothée Chalamet has the perfect voice for Willy Wonka, and I think he sings perfectly throughout the majority of the movie. There were a couple of cast members that actually sung their songs back and forth. The singing doesn't feel more like you're lip singing or just be like, they don't feel like they're mumbling. There sometimes they felt a little bit more mumbling on the mumbling side, but I was like, yeah, this is just, I was like, I can't understand what they're saying. But no, you can actually, with the songs, you can actually clearly what they're saying. I love the music and the songs and the music score of this movie. The music score of this movie is fantastic. Everything about this movie is perfect. It's perfect. But there were some times where the movie, what I really liked about this movie as well, it doesn't feel rushed. This movie did not feel rushed, not one single bit. There were some times where the movie I'll feel a little bit rushed at some time, and then there's some times where the movie does slow down and take its time. It's just like, okay, we need to take our time and not rush it through. And yes, they did not rush anything through. Yeah, they did not rush nothing through at all. This movie does not feel rushed. Yeah, I'm glad this movie didn't feel rushed as the previous movies that I watched that felt rushed, like Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania and Avatar: The Way of Water. Those movies felt rushed. This movie does not feel rushed, and I think director Paul King did not want to rush this movie at all. And I'm glad he actually took his time with the camera work to have this movie focus on where this person is and where that person is and where these locations actually take place, and in some really interesting moments of the movie. And that's pretty much wraps it up. And the rest of this movie is fantastic. I think this might be my favorite third Wonka movie. And I actually like this movie a lot more than Johnny Depp's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Yeah, Willy Wonka. Gene Wilder's Willy Wonka, I really like. But with this new Willy Wonka with Timothée Chalamet, is one of my favorite Willy Wonka movies I ever watched for the very first time. And I think that's pretty much wraps it up for Wonka. And yeah, I think that wraps it up for Wonka. Have you seen it? Have you not seen it? If you have seen it, I'm glad. Well, form your own opinion if you like the movie or not. But if you have not seen the movie, go see it if you're a big Willy Wonka fan. Because I saw this movie. I'm a massive Willy Wonka fan. And I think that's pretty much wraps it up for Wonka. And that is pretty much it. There's nothing much else to say. So be sure to like, subscribe, post notification bell, follow me on Instagram, comment down below, and I'll see you in my next video. Thank you for watching.